Hey everybody, it's great to be back with you again. My name is Craig Rochelle, and if you don't know who I am, I'm actually the pastor of this church, and I'm super honored to be back with you again at the greatest student ministry around. Those of you who are a part of other churches and those of you at network churches, we are super glad to be sharing this time with your student ministry as well. And what we're doing is we're having a little bit of fun. We're kind of doing what the parents call the talk. We're talking about some things that are really important to us at this point in our lives, and we're kind of talking about the birds and the bees. So last week, we kind of gently got into it. Do you mind if we kind of go a little deeper this week? If you're okay with that at all our churches, could you give me a little shout out if you're ready to get serious at all of our churches? We're going to get practical, and we may talk about some things that will make you nervous. The good news is, I'm nervous too. Fair enough? Let me tell you a story as we get into this. When I was a little kid, I loved squirrels. Anybody like squirrels? Yeah, now I think they look like a rat with a bushy tail. But when I was a kid, I thought they were really cute. And one time I was out and I saw a little squirrel by a tree, and I got pretty close to this squirrel, and I thought, I'm just going to see how close I can get up to this squirrel. I got closer and closer, and evidently someone had kind of tamed the squirrel, because I got close enough that I could actually reach out and pet the squirrel. So I was very carefully, as I approached, but I went up and the little squirrel head was right there, and I put my hand on the back of the head, and I was actually able to pet the squirrel. I was like, whoa, this is the coolest squirrel ever. So I simply went, pet. Then I kind of went down like you would on the back of a dog, not a cat, because we don't like cats, but I went down like I would on the back of it, and I went, stroke. And I did it again. Pet. Stroke. The third time I went in, the little squirrel got grumpy. And for whatever reason, when I went in to go pet, the squirrel turned on me, and God is my witness, it sounded like this. And that little demon-possessed monster set me up. He's like, you watch this little pet stroke. And he attacked me. My hand was shredded up, and just, you wouldn't think a squirrel could hurt you. A squirrel can send you to the hospital in 2.5 seconds flat. The thing turned on me completely. What does this have to do with the talk? Some of you see where this is going. Boy meets girl. Girl likes boy. Pet. Stroke. Pet. Stroke. If you're not careful, it'll go like this. And the next thing you know is things go crazy. The title of this talk is, Don't Pet the Squirrel. You can tweet it, you can Instagram it, you can hashtag it. Hashtag don't pet the squirrel. You won't forget that, I hope, and there will be some time where you're going to remember, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to pet the squirrel. I want to use that to walk into a very practical talk about purity and how we're going to treat people in our relationships, what we will do and what we don't do. And I want to start with God's word from 1 Corinthians chapter 6. We'll be in verses 12, 13, and then we'll read some more. Now, Paul was writing to the Corinthian church, and these people were messed up when it came to purity. They were doing things that were crazy and very wrong and very dangerous. And so Paul was trying to help lead them to a higher standard. And he said this, he said, hey, I may have the right to do anything, you say. Then he told him, but not everything is beneficial. In other words, there's going to be some times you go, well, I can do this. It's not hurting anybody. Everybody else is doing it. I can do this. And Paul's going to say, but not everything is good for you and for others and pleasing to God. I can do this, but it may not be beneficial. He said, I may say I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. Then in verse 13, he said, the body, however, is not meant for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. what you're going to hear and you're going to see modeled a lot of times is like sex before marriage. Hey, it's no big deal. Everybody else is doing it. I can do this. We can fool around. We can do everything but. We can do this. We can do that. We can do whatever. And it's not that big of a deal. It's not hurting anybody anyway. Hey, I might as well do this. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you want what everyone else has, then simply do what everyone else does. When you look around today, I guarantee you, you don't see a whole lot of marriages where you say, I want one like that. If you want something that other people don't have, you'll have to do things that other people won't do. If you want something that very few people have, you'll have to live a life that very few people are willing to do. And I believe that you're going to want something better. Therefore, you're going to be willing to do something different and recognize that the gift of sex is actually something that God has reserved for marriage, and I want to talk about the power of that today. We'll reread verse 13 again, where Paul says this, the body, however, is not meant for sexual immorality, but for the Lord. Now, here's what's really cool, is God is not against sex. In fact, God is very pro-sex. God created it, and you can read in His Word that He is very, very much for it. There's probably no coincidence that it actually feels good. Yes, we're saying this in church. Just work with me. Hang in there. Hang in there. It's going to get worse. This is just the beginning. Hang in there. Yeah. God's not against it, but what He is against sexual immorality. And sexual immorality is any kind of sex outside of the covenant of marriage, and this is really important for us to understand. The problem so often, I believe, that the mistake we've made in the church for years, is we're going like, no, when it comes to sex, no, don't think about it, don't get close to it, bad. Then you're supposed to go on your honeymoon and go like, and everything's supposed to just like change. Like 1 minute is bad, and the next minute is like, wah! And we just don't know how to do that, It's kind of like these boxer shorts that they gave me on my bachelor party night. They said they had no written all over them. No. Then when you turn them off, they were glow in the dark. And they said, yes, okay? And that's kind of like what we're expecting. No, kids, bad. No, instead what we need to do is say, not no, but wait. We're waiting on something better. It's not like this is no, it is good. It's like it's always good when it's in the parameters of God's higher calling. And so today, I'm simply telling you, wait on something that's amazing. Wait on something that is holy. Wait on something that is a great big blessing. My message to you is no. My message is wait on something better. And so the question's going to kind of come up. If you're spending time with someone you like, how far is too far? Any of you ever wonder that? How much can we do before it's like God goes, whoa, buzz, put that one in the trap door, okay? How much can, is God going, you're cool, everything's fine, but, where is the line? And what I'm going to say to you, that's funny, right? Okay, hang in there with me. It's going to get worse, okay? We're just getting started, okay? I'm going to tell you right now that that's the wrong question. That instead of saying, how close can I get to the edge before I fall off and do something wrong, the better way to approach it is, how far can I stay away from that which might be dishonoring to God and disrespectful to someone else, okay? But you think about this. Instead of like, how close can I get to something that's dangerous and hurtful and destructive, how far can I stay away from something that would disappoint God and dishonor someone else? And so when we ask the right question, then suddenly we start to have a better response. Okay? God is not against sex. He's very much for it. But He's for it within the blessings of a covenant of marriage. And so I want to give you just kind of four different thoughts about sex outside of marriage. If you're taking notes, the first thing we need to understand is this: outside of marriage, you cannot have safe sex. You cannot have safe sex. You may think, well, I'm going to use certain birth control or whatever, but the bottom line is there is no birth control for your heart, okay? And that's a little bit graphic, but what I want you to know is you cannot protect your heart. okay? And when you're with somebody else, it's more than just a physical act. This is actually because the gift of lovemaking is meant to be spiritual, showing a covenant of marriage. When you do something like this, it's actually very spiritual, and more than your body is involved. Your heart is involved. And when you give yourself away again and again and again, you're actually hurting your heart. And years later, you're going to find out you get married to somebody like, oh man, I'm sorry. I wish I could change my past, or I wish your past was different, because we have to understand outside of marriage, there is no such thing as safe sex. The second thing we need to understand is this: you are reducing a gift to an act. You're reducing a gift to an act. This is a gift from God. It is a beautiful, spiritual, and holy gift. And in our world today, let's just call it what it is. Like, yeah, I did it. Yeah, and I'm not going to get into the slang, but it's very disrespectful the way people talk about this holy gift. And we're reducing a gift from God to a simple act. And we're not going to do that. The third thing we need to understand is this: you may be sleeping with someone else's future spouse. Chances are pretty good. And if that doesn't rattle you, you need to understand that someone may be sleeping with your future spouse. Oh, just got personal, didn't it? I mean, seriously. Because it's really hard to think about that when you're 15 or when you're 18. But when you're really getting to the marrying age, all of a sudden you're like, well, how many people have you been with? Oh, you were doing that. Suddenly, this doesn't feel so right. And so what I want to do is I want to love my future spouse today with the same standard I'm going to hope for from them. In other words, one of the ways you can love your future spouse that you don't even know yet, that may be 4 years away or 10 years away or whatever, is to say, I'm going to be different for you today. And years later, you can say, I was loving you back before I ever met you, by honoring you, by living according to God's standards. The fourth thing you need to understand is this: when you have sex outside of marriage, you are setting a pattern of compromise. You're setting a pattern of compromise. And here's what you need to know. Those of you who you're going to be serious about following Christ, okay? If you compromise, and let's say you have sex with a person you're going to marry, and you compromise and your fiance compromises, guess what? You both agreed that God's standards are not important to you before you're married. So here's what happens. On the other side of marriage, suddenly you're wondering, wait a minute, she was willing to compromise once. Will she compromise again? And she's wondering, he was willing to compromise in this category once. Will he compromise again? And suddenly, instead of having deep trust as a foundation, instead, you've established a pattern that if it feels good, we're going to do it. And it doesn't matter what God said. We might compromise this. If in the moment, the passion is so real, we just can't stop ourselves. Sex outside of marriage is never God's will. He has something way better for us. Verse 18 says this. The Bible says we are to flee from sexual immorality. All of our churches, I want you to just tell me, what are we to do? We are to what? Say it loud. We are to flee. Say it again. What are we to do? We are to flee. One more time. We are to flee from sexual immorality. What's really interesting is every other type of sin in the Bible, you know what it tells us to do? To fight it, to resist it. But when it comes to sexual stuff, we don't fight it, we don't resist it, we run, Forrest, run. We flee. Why? Because all other sins a person commits are outside the body. But whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. We flee. We run from it. I heard one guy, he actually did a song that went like this. He was singing, if I could sing, I would do this right now. But if I did this, you would never come back to Switch as long as you live. But he said, no ring, no thing. No marriage, no carriage. No wedding, no bedding. Let me try that again because it was much funnier when he did it. He said, no ring, no thing. Forget it. I'm not even going to try it again, okay? It didn't work. but he's like, hey, if we don't get married, you're not getting any of this. I'll put it this way. When I was growing up in school, there were a few cool jobs. I don't know if you have these anymore. You probably don't. There was a hall monitor. The hall monitor would sit in the hall, and if someone's running to the hall, write their name down. Busted! Okay? There was the video light turner-offer. Whenever there was a video, one person's job was turn the light off at the appropriate time. Oh, I always wanted that job. But the one I got was the fire drill guy. Whenever there was a fire drill, I was the one in charge of making sure everybody was out of the room. I would go and look under the desk to make sure there weren't any straggling students that could be left behind in a burning fire. And then I would turn the light off to signal the room is clear. You are totally safe, and you don't have to worry about anyone burning up in our classroom. I was the junior fire marshal guy. I learned, if you ever catch on fire, you immediately, tell me if you know it, stop, drop, and roll. If you are in a heated situation, with the opposite sex, do not stop, drop, and roll. You back off, and you run, and you get out of Dodge. You get out of trouble, you don't get close. It's not how close can I get to trouble, but how far can I stay away? And I gotta be honest with you, man. I mean, you get close to somebody and they smell good. And girls are soft. And that's different than what we see. And you kind of get going. And so I just want to get real practical with you and give you 4 thoughts if you want to honor God in this way. Very practical, and you can take these to the bank. The first thing is, number 1, keep others informed of your limits up front. In other words, hey, you want to go to the boonga boonga? I'm not your person. In other words, you tell them, there's certain things I'm not going to do, and you don't wait until you're in the back seat of the car. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I don't do that. No, you tell them up front, I'm a follower of Jesus, and I've got higher standards. You want to go shopping for that, go to a different store, because that's not for sale here. Okay? The second thing is this: keep 4 feet on the floor. You have no idea how good of advice this is. Okay? Keep 4 feet on the floor. You're watching a movie, 4 feet on the floor. Because here's the problem. The moment you're watching a movie and she puts her shaved legs up on top of your hairy legs, and now there's only 2 feet on the floor, suddenly things start happening. Okay? You keep 4 feet on the floor, and it is amazing how safe you are. You have no idea how good this is. This is like money. Okay. Number 3, keep everything buttoned and zipped. Listen to me. It is hard to get naked when everything's buttoned and zipped. How incredible is that? Where else can you get this? I mean, it's just very simple. You just keep it buttoned and you keep it zipped. That's about as easy as it gets. And then number 4, if you want to go to a high standard, I just say keep your mouth shut. What does that mean? That doesn't mean you can't talk. That means none of this. Blah, 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 blah. No tonsil hockey, okay? No, you just decide I'm not making out. Now, some of you are going to look at me like crazy, like going, you mean I can't kiss till I'm married? I'm not saying that. It's not a sin to kiss until you're married. But I will tell you this. I never struggled being tempted sexually going out with Amy until the first time we kissed. Because what happens is when you kiss, you're like, body to body, okay? And you kiss for a little while. And after a while, your hands get bored. And before long, your hands start going somewhere they weren't supposed to go. And so I'm just saying, for some of you who want what nobody else has, you might do what very few people do. I know some kids who say, you know what? We're going to save our first kiss until we're married. Or we were like kissing maniacs before, but from this point forward, I want to wait and save that for the future. Why does this matter? 1 Corinthians 6:19-20, because you are not your own. You are bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. You're not your own. Those of you who are followers of Jesus, you recognize this, that my body does not belong to me, that Jesus paid the price for my sins, and he has something better. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I was imperfect in this area until I became a follower of Christ. Then I was not perfect. My mind still had struggles. But when I became a follower of Jesus, I committed to sexual purity. And I didn't do anything inappropriate again until I was blessed in marriage to then do what honors God in the covenant of marriage. And I'll tell you, when I went on my honeymoon with Amy, number one, I was so nervous I got lost on the way there, even though I'd been to this stupid hotel 14 times. I was so excited, like, oh, Jesus, help me. Jesus, take the wheel. Just get me there quick. Okay? And then I carried her into our room, and I opened up the Bible, and I read to her the Bible, and we prayed, and then we sealed our spiritual covenant with a physical act that was holy and pleasing to God. It was holy and pleasing to God. If you compromise your honeymoon, it'll be just another day at the office. Just another day at the office. But if you recognize that your body doesn't belong to you, it's been purchased by the shed blood of Jesus, suddenly you recognize, I have the chance to honor God. I may be 14 years old and I'm honoring God today. I may be 17 years old and I'm honoring God today. And I'm loving my future spouse long before we may even meet. Why? Because long before I was even born, Jesus honored me by giving his life. And I want to honor him, and I want to respect other people, and I believe God has something better for me. So, don't pet the squirrel. Not yet. When you get married, pet, pet, pet. Stroke, stroke, stroke. When it is holy and right. Let's all pray. Father, thank you for this amazing group of students. We ask that you would minister these truths deep within them, and they would be willing to be different, set apart to please you in what they do. All of our churches, those of you who would say, man, there may be some high standards, they may be crazy, they may be different than what all of my friends are doing, and I know people may laugh, but I want to pursue purity because I want to honor Jesus, and I am willing to be different, to live for him. No matter what you've done in the past, no matter where you might be right now, God forgives and he makes new. We let the past go and say, from this moment forward, I want to pursue Jesus with all of my heart. I want to pursue purity. May his truth live through me. May he make me pure. When I'm tempted, I will flee because I recognize my body is not my own. It belongs to him. All of our churches, those of you who say, I am willing to be different and I am ready to be different. With the help of Jesus in me, I want to live a life of purity. Would you lift up your hands right now? Just lift them high. Lift them high. There are more of you than that. I want you to lift them. All of our churches, lift them up and say, yes, before God. I want his help living pure. Father, I thank you for some bold students, some students who are willing to walk away from the standards of this world and say, we want something more. We're ready to serve Jesus with our whole hearts. God, I pray for strength for them. God, I pray that when others may laugh or make fun of them, that'll just fire them up even more to be bold for you. God, I thank you that one day people will turn to them and ask, what makes you different? And they'll be able to say, let me tell you about the one who loved me, forgave me, and made me different. God, raise up a generation that's willing to serve you no matter what the cost. And we thank you in advance for the future blessings that they will experience because of their present obedience to following Jesus. As you keep praying today at all of our churches, let me just be real honest with you. In the back of my mind, when I was a little around your age, a little bit older, I was feeling drawn to God, but I felt so guilty for the things that I'd done wrong. The weight was so heavy. And it was only when I realized that Jesus died for all that I'd done, and that when I prayed that he totally and completely would forgive me, that he would not remember my sins anymore. Suddenly, I was free to give him my whole life. It was the most amazing experience to recognize all the people that I hurt, all the times I disappointed myself, all the times I'd crushed others, that Jesus would forgive that. That whenever you confess Jesus with your mouth, he saves you. He forgives you. And there are many of you here, you are here right now because God wanted you to be here because you're going to call on Jesus. And he's going to forgive every sin that you've ever committed. And you're going to be made into a brand new person. And that's why you're here, and you know it. You can sense it. This is your moment. This is your time. It's time to step across the line and say, my life is not my own. Today, I trust it to Jesus. Jesus, forgive me. I give you my life. That's your prayer today at all of our churches. Would you say, yes, I'm ready, I'm willing, I surrender. Jesus, I give you my life. Would you lift your hands high right now, all of our churches, and say, I surrender my life completely to him.